can call the meeting to order.
Yeah.
Right on time. I guess, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Judy, if you'd like to use the microphone so the recorder can pick up, that'd be terrific.
I'm Judy Nyron, and I'm a 46-year resident of Lucas Farms neighborhood, almost 47, same house. And I represent the Neighborhood Association. I've been involved with leadership for almost a decade now. So anyway, I'm glad to answer any questions you have.
Yeah.
We'll have that
well,
as about our
Yeah,
first agenda.
you're the
Okay.
second thing on the agenda after approving the
Got
notes,
it.
so if you want to stay
Okay.
there, you can.
Oh, you want me to just stay
We'll
here?
be.
Okay.
Is there any, moving on to the meeting minutes from last meeting?
Yeah. Is there any what?
Is there any comments on the meeting minutes from last meeting?
I do have one somewhere. I thought there was.
There was one like minor typo again.
Yeah.
Emerging, it was in the South District bus stop bench update. Said
that's
that
what it
Ethan, emerging artist, would not be attendance, just missing the word "in."
Oh, in attendance.
Yeah.
Okay.
There.
That's the only thing I saw, though.
I saw that might have been it. I don't even know where it went.
Motion to approve with correction?
Just a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. All right, Judy, you're up with an update on the,
Well, there's not a lot to update. We've had spits and starts of this whole project, first interrupted by COVID, and I was very grateful for it because I have this dream or a vision for Lucas Farms and the history that's there to share that, including the indigenous history. And so this project represented that. I have in the past spoken with, met with members of the Sauk and Fox Meskwaki tribe here at Tama, Toledo, and we've tried to draw in there. We had an artist of Sauk and Fox descent that was interested initially, and that just, we couldn't get it to any kind of proposal. And then Ben Farrar, who is a resident of Lucas Farms, he had been doing some other artistic work for us. He's a fantastic artist. And then he started getting involved. His first proposal wasn't really received, and then the next one was in part received well, but he's had a lot of things going on, and I think this is kind of the third time that we haven't made a deadline. And so I'm willing to answer any questions to help share the vision that we have, any of that might help you make some kind of a decision.
And let's see, I think I shared last time that we had started the whole process back in May of '21, and fits and starts is a good way to describe how the communication has gone since then. And we did just hear from Ben again today that he wasn't going to be able to make the meeting after all, and in fact, things were a little chaotic in his life right now, and he didn't know if he should be the one to continue on with this project, so.
Do you have any a backup artist or a backup plan if that's the case?
Well, with Ben, he's our tenant and a friend, and so in regards, out of respect to him, when he said he would do it, he's been a very reliable tenant. And out of respect to him, I haven't jumped ahead to start looking for someone else. The only thing I can say is that, maybe we need to go back to connecting with the Sauk and Fox again, since this particular piece of art has reference to the Keokuk Reserve that ran through that area, and Keokuk Street and Keokuk Court are one of only 4 actual indigenous street names in Iowa City, related. The others would be Iowa Avenue, Black Hawk Springs, and then technically Muscatine is of indigenous origin. It means island of Fire Island, so Lower Muscatine would have some reference there. And anyway, both of the governors who lived in Lucas Farms had experience with the indigenous people. Governor Lucas, it was said, Irving Weber's the one that would tell this story, that when Governor Lucas stepped out on his farmland and looked across the Iowa River, he could see the fires of the Meskwaki across the river. And, you know, I do a lot of tours. That's more my thing. The history and the tours are where my heart lies. But, you know, growing up in Iowa, we always say Iowa's the land between two rivers, and that also has indigenous history, the word. And I believe that the early days of Iowa City was a city, two cultures divided by one river. And on one side of the river, you know, there was the Western culture coming in, and on the other side, of course, was the Sauk and Fox. And so we have a unique opportunity to tell a little bit of that history and try to express that. So that was why I really felt strongly and really encouraged by Ben's initial design. It includes the Sauk and Fox colors of red and green, and they are technically or specifically called the Red Earth people. And the idea of acknowledging that and helping people walking, passing by, know more of that history. Why is that name Keokuk? Who is Keokuk? Keokuk didn't actually live in the area of Iowa City. Poweshiek and his people were the ones that lived here. But it gives an opportunity to tell that story in a way that just the average citizen taking a walk or stopping at the park could absorb that and understand better that kind of complex time of change. So, as I said, next thing would be if someone knew of an indigenous artist, or if we give Ben one more time period to stretch this out and, you know, all or nothing, you know, if he can't make it, then we start looking for another artist. I minored in art, so I have an interest in art, but I do not have the kind of connections. Ben is an incredible artist with lots of experience, so it just seems like a good fit.
And as a reminder, we had budgeted for this in FY21.
Yes.
And that was $12,000. We carried that over to FY22, 23, and I've requested to have it carried over to 24, but don't have the results of that request yet.
Mm-hmm. And we know that the cost of materials is going up, so that might impact some of the materials that are used or whatever, but we want something that is permanent, kind of basing it off of what Longfellow neighborhood did a decade and a half ago with some of their signage. Lucas Farm is packed with history, and until I used to, when my children were younger, do tours at Old Capitol because I've always had an interest in regional history. But when we reorganized our neighborhood association, I suggested we do something about the history because there's a story in the land where we all are living. The sun rises in the same place at the same time of the year as those before us, and there's a story even in the people who only saw this as a temporary landing place. But we have incredible history once I started really digging into it. I just continue to be astounded. So there's no doubt about the history and the impact. I might mention just recently, people give my name out. You can give my name out if it's for history tours. But recently contacted by a tour company from Des Moines who are working on a tour a year in advance that will include Lucas Farms walking tour, as well as Old Capitol and a few other sites. But anyway, there's a strong interest in the history, and we like to tell it as far back as we can to, you know, the value of people who even survived things that we're familiar with.
From the notes, it sounds like part of the project was received, but it was too low resolution. Is there
No, that's
Different
it.
project.
different project? Okay.
Yep.
I'm not aware initially there was a problem with Ben's original design, but then he got inspiration from some kind of a light sculpture over at Grinnell. He works part-time at Grinnell College, and that translated so well into using those colors of the Sauk and Fox. I actually contacted Mid-America. I just get ideas and I go with them. But I was curious if we could get bands of red and green painted on our poles that line Keokuk Street as a reminder. I thought, well, that isn't really invasive to anybody climbing the pole, but they said they can't do that. But, that was just a thought of something. So we're just looking for some way, and then the idea of an art piece as well relates well within the Iowa City community.
Well, I could see us possibly doing another extension, and then if it's not working out, and in whatever that time frame is, maybe we go with the same concept, but then do our own call for artists to get it moving along the same concept terms. I don't know exactly what you'd want to do for a time frame, or. But.
I mean, it does seem, given the continual kind of, carryovers we've had to do, I think having a very firm boundaries and firm timeline would be very helpful from the committee's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with Ben's response saying that he might not even be the right person for the job, it doesn't seem like let's give Ben another couple months and hope it works out. It feels like let's give Lucas Farm this project a couple months or whatever the right amount of time is, and if you can convince Ben to do it, that'd be awesome. But in the meantime, find another artist if he can, and then come back with a proposal.
And
or
I would
something.
think if we were going to try to get it done by the end of this next budget year, it would be 2 or 3 months that we would have wiggle room for you to work on it. If you can, we would need to probably take it over at that point, have any chance of getting it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because would we put out another RFP basically
Yeah.
then?
I would think.
We did put out on our Facebook in the past, requests. We do have some artists in the neighborhood. Obviously, this is a little different, more of a sculpture and, may not be in the wheelhouse of certain artists. But we also, just briefly, have a couple of other strong connections to Indigenous history. And on Kirkwood Avenue is a house that was once owned by Jasper Newton Templeman, and he was both a Civil War veteran, but he had some kind of health problems afterwards, so he moved from Iowa City to South Dakota. And he was in South Dakota less than a decade, but he is considered the only individual that photographed the Crow Nation. So if you go online, you'll find a lot of photos, I should say, for the Crow Nation. And he also, the little sod shanty on the prairie, it's a picture that became kind of iconic, and then it was translated into a song. It was a parody of a popular song, and it became very popular. So Jasper Newton Templeman lived on Kirkwood Avenue. And also Governor Kirkwood, that lived at 1101 Kirkwood, he and Jane Kirkwood both were very interested in preserving Native American history, and I just haven't had time to do that. I'll be honest, it's a little embarrassing, but I probably put in 20-plus hours a week on Lucas Farms history and research, and I'm going on the Johnson County Historic Society board soon. But there's just that much that's unfolded, and so with Governor Kirkwood, I haven't had time to research much about that, but that is partly why he was appointed Secretary of the Interior under Garfield, and then Garfield was assassinated, so Governor Kirkwood didn't fill out that whole term. But Governor Kirkwood was very concerned with preserving the Native American story. They saw it evaporating and disappearing. So that's another strong connection, that if we can tell those Indigenous stories in a way that ties it together and does it in a way that's respectful to the culture,
Yeah.
we'd love to be able to do that.
I mean, I don't think anybody is sort of questioning the merit of the project. I don't want us to give that impression at all. I guess my question related an artist-related question is, with such, it seems like the focus of the project might be so based in Indigenous history that perhaps going ahead and trying to find another Indigenous artist might be a good way to go to get the project sort of going again, given that Ben seems to have a lot going on.
Judy, I think that was going to be my question is, do you want a couple months, or would it be easier for us to just say, it's time for us to take it back and do another call for artists at this point?
Well, I'm leaning that direction, and even to answer your question, the only reason I mention some of these things is so that you know the value of this
Absolutely.
project, to continue it, to give it another
Yes.
chance.
No, it sounds like
Yeah.
a wonderful, wonderful project, Judy.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think that, I don't want
Right.
to, I'm sorry if I'm coming off as
No,
dismissive.
no.
It's not.
But Dawson Davenport was very interested initially, and then he got involved in other projects. And so our original direction was with an Indigenous artist. The challenge for me is I don't have connections to artists. I don't know where to
Sure.
begin on that. And I have other things I can contribute to the neighborhood and to Iowa City history. And so I feel like I've been down this route for several years. So, you know, I would be in agreement that if you feel it's appropriate to just say we're moving on to another artist, that's fine. But we would need some help because we're all a bunch of volunteers just doing what we can to create community and preserve the story, so.
I think in this case, what would happen is the neighborhood association would provide us with kind of the background or what you're looking for as far as the indigenous story. And then we would take on the actual finding the artist, doing the artist call.
And I would celebrate it if we could find an Indigenous artist. That is really key, and sometimes I've thought maybe that's why this hasn't worked out, you know, because we need to find that element, that right connection. But I do like Ben's design, the initial design. It might need some tweaking, but the lighted column and the colors, I think, would draw the eye. You also should know, we have very little park space. We supposedly have the smallest amount of park area per resident in Iowa City, because we are an older neighborhood. We have Highland Avenue Park, which was actually just it was a lot that a house used to be there and it was torn down. And now we have absorbed Oak Grove neighborhood into Lucas Farms. So we do have Oak Grove Park. And obviously we have riverfront crossings nearby, but in terms of pushing a stroller, getting there, or, you know, walking down after dinner to watch the kids swing or something, we don't have a lot of area. So it's a well-used area. It gets a lot of traffic.
All right, so you're saying we would issue an RFP for this neighborhood project, not just for any neighborhood project? We would kind of take over this concept and...
Yeah, if you wanted to continue on this line of thought, honoring the Indigenous people in that neighborhood, that'd be a way to go.
I mean, there is something nice about that, since we have a neighborhood and neighborhood association readily available, and who wants the project and who, you know. So I do think there might be value in continuing that, but I think moving forward, coming up with a more general RFP for neighborhoods and future projects, Steve, I absolutely do.
Well, isn't that how the Lucas Farms one came about, or was that just selected?
I think that was interest shown, and then perhaps maybe Marcia reaching out. That's always been my impression, but
Forget.
that would be a question for Marcia.
I think she had a way of kind of cycling through neighborhoods who had shown interest, and it was Lucas Farms' turn a few years ago, and I think that's how that started.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key will be to keep it open enough that, not make it so specific that no one applies, you know? And to allow the artistic freedom for whoever, you know, for whoever applies to, you know, bring their own creativity to it.
So I guess my question would be, in terms of, you know, Ben has this initial concept. You know, if we were to put out an RFP for an artist, do you feel like Ben, or perhaps you or other neighborhood association members would be willing to sort of say, okay, well, we like these elements from the project, and so this could sort of inform the request for proposal, but still leave that artistic, leave things open for perhaps this new artist to come in and make that project their own? Do you feel like that would be okay? Or is this more of a situation of you would rather have this design and then have an artist execute Ben's design?
That's an interesting question. I don't think most artists want to take on someone else's project.
Right, yeah.
And the only thing would be to say, our inspiration, we want some lighted feature. This is a general idea of something. You know, and I don't even know if that park has lighting, because we had a band there this summer, and the little gazebo there doesn't have power. And so that would even involve some extra money. I will say that several years back, we also submitted an idea for a mural, like on a fence, because we've had the private property owners at some time were interested in putting a fence up. And something like a mural, we have the artists qualified in our neighborhood, you know, to complete that. But when you go to the level of a sculpture and installation and some of these other things, it becomes a little more complex. So there would be other ways that if it didn't work out to have a lighted sculpture there, to still reapply for some different concept that may be more doable. I don't know.
And for clarification, I don't think there was actual electricity piped to Ben's design. Rather, there were
Solar?
layers of glass that would refract
Okay.
ambient light. So it was not lit at night, but rather kind of like a couple of the pieces downtown. There are layers of green glass in solar marker, and the other one escapes me, but similar.
Okay.
Does that sound okay to you to put together? I mean, that's kind of on your shoulders then, to start that
Staff,
process.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, anything is doable. It's just a matter of fitting it in. And this one, it would be good to get more, I think, more of a description of what the neighborhood is seeking. Is it a monument? Is it a sculpture? Is it a historical interpretive plaque? Those kinds of things. Otherwise, we don't know what we're asking for.
Well, I could get back to you in a month on that. We can call a meeting, and we would at least refine some of the thinking there. And that would help, especially if we decide, or if you decide you're not going to move ahead with Ben. When I read the email, I didn't totally see him completely saying he can't do it or won't do it. And so I'll go back and look at that closer.
Okay.
To see I'll reinterpret that maybe. But if we're at a junction of where we say Ben is not going to be the artist, then that opens us up to more flexibility. The only thing I'd be concerned about is, in a timely way, let's get rolling and get some input, so that if there's someone else that would be qualified to contact an artist and start working through that
I'm just thinking of all the
process.
sculptures we just put in are temporary. All of those would be kind of within the same scope and size of what we're looking at. So we've got a whole group of artists, not necessarily indigenous artists, but we have a group of artists that are obviously able to do that level, that type of work that we can call on, at least for some ideas this might.
It'd be wonderful to get it done. And then, words are failing me right now. Ben had a name for it. When you have like a lead, like the sculpture would be like it would have a little history beside it. And our other goal is to get more signage around our neighborhood with some of these really important stories. So I know that falls into another area. And I even see that the Visitor and Convention Bureau now has some grants. So I'm going to be knocking on their door and see. But I can see how with a bike library like I said, have a vision. With the bike library close by, we're working on some short rides that would be like date rides or family rides, and they could include themes. And so if we have signage starting at Keokuk, kind of the main place, and then going from there. So Ben did have a design as well for some kind of an easel or a placard that would be by any kind of a sculpture that would give the interpretation of the meaning. So that's just something else to think about.
So, I mean, I think I'm in agreement with, actually, I know I'm in agreement with Wendy on figuring out, again, if the neighborhood can refine what this specific project is going to be, right? And then sort of moving from, yes, Ben can do it, or no, Ben cannot. And then we can sort of, again, be able to, if we need to put out an RFP, we could do that more quickly to get the process going. But it does seem like, if it's a mural, then there are plenty of neighborhood artists,
Right, definitely.
If it's a different kind of piece, obviously, then that might require a different artist. So it feels like, yes, refining what needs to be this project, and then kind of figuring out from Ben whether or not he can do it, and with a firm kind of answer from Ben. Because that then helps us to say, okay, this is the project that the neighborhood wants. If we do have to put out an RFP, then we know what you all are kind of looking for in general, and then can get that process going. Because this sounds fascinating. I mean, all the things you've been talking about sound really fascinating, and I really want to see them up, and going. And this has been a long-term project, so it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Lucas
That
Farm.
we've been waiting for this to happen,
Yes,
to move to the
it's-
next kind of thing, and then, yeah, it's been a little challenging. So I appreciate your patience and not just writing us off completely. You have every right to do that, the way the project's gone. It's been an awkward kind of process.
So do we have a contract with anybody at this point?
No.
So the work that Ben's done as far as concepting has been pro bono? I mean, he's been doing it okay. So
He lives in Lucas Farms, and he actually rents from us.
Sure. So, I mean, so
So-
if we put it back out on the street
Yeah.
with an RFP, he has the ability to propose, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It seems to me, as long as we can get the concept and get the RFP out, that seems to be the cleanest way to move this forward versus waiting to try to get an answer from Ben. So I mean, I think the RFP process and, getting the concept or what the piece we want from the artist, from the neighborhood, and then putting that into an RFP seems to be the cleanest way to move this forward.
Sounds good. So we can talk offline about what exact information we'd need
Okay.
to develop an RFQ for you.
Yeah, and just tell me what you want us to do, and we'll get that part of it done, and then next step. So,
Good.
great. Okay?
Thanks, Judy.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. And Iowa City, the story needs to be told.
Yes.
For
The
sure.
rest of the story, besides just, the Hawkeyes and arts, we need to get that history. There it is. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the Black Hawk Mini Park project. Speaking of Indigenous artists.
Right. And so I introduced this last time, the question of where we are with the Black Hawk Mini Park project. And I put in the memo all of the things related because it's a circuitous path that we've taken to get as far as we got, which was a really neat design that everybody really liked, but then we didn't have a high enough resolution version of it. It was probably created in Adobe Illustrator, I'm guessing, to move forward with. And we haven't had any contact, as you know, with the artist since last fall at some point. So that's why I put all of the pieces together here. I thought it was also important that we reviewed, how we ended up with a budget of $6,800 for that project. And hopefully, these notes answered some questions. I noticed one date typo, at least in there, on the first page, near the bottom, May 5th, 2020 should be May 5th, 2022. So that's your background. Is there any other?
I thought you were also going to check with legal, with the city attorney about like what our options are as far as terminating the contract versus,
And I'm sorry, I have not done that.
okay.
I-
Or like using the art, having ASI like recreate it or something. But since then, I've Googled it, since you referenced that, I don't feel like we should
I-
move forward with it.
Yeah,
Just based on.
I would feel the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need to terminate the contract and move forward with a new
Yeah,
project.
I agree.
Yep.
It seems risky to celebrate
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
artist. Right.
Lots of growls.
Yeah. I mean, I think unfortunately, we have an individual that made a bad decision, right? And I think it does not seem, it does not seem right to move forward with this artist.
I agree.
So that would be a motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Unanimous. Then, does that, I mean, so it's, the 1,600 is just sunk cost, then the remaining money can go to anything we want, I guess? Do we want to try to, I mean, I think it always was pretty small for and it was kind of his vision for that specific site, so I don't know, do we want to, are there thoughts from anyone on what to do with it?
I mean,
Ginny, you had
you
something.
can start. We were just talking after the meeting about how it would be nice to do a call for artists, focusing on Indigenous artists in the area. The School of Art, talking to local Indigenous artists, reaching out to the Meskwaki tribe, and just, letting them know and see what comes in, and just kind of starting fresh.
But not with just $5,000 and focused on Black Hawk Mini Park, but like, would it make sense to take this 5,000 or whatever is left and put it in with the 12,000? And that's supposed to be about Native American, or,
I don't know.
Indigenous art as well. Like, is there,
That would be
don't know.
one solution.
these budgets are really small to
Yeah.
do.
I kind of like that. I like that idea. And then really target it to an Indigenous artist. And I've never been a huge, complete fan of doing this in Black Hawk Mini Park. So to me, that puts it in the neighborhood where there's a real well, I guess there's history there too, but
Yeah.
I like that idea.
I mean, I will say if we do take that budget, then absolutely, I think it, increasing the Lucas Farms project budget, it absolutely should be
Focused on.
targeted at Indigenous
Yes.
artists. And have an Indigenous artist lead that.
Do you want to make a motion to that effect? That's how the committee would like these funds to be spent then?
Do you feel like, I mean, you guys are more plugged into the artist community, and as you've issued RFPs in the past, is there Indigenous artists, like, is there enough out there that
I
would
would
get
think
a
so.
response?
Sure.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like, I feel like we should at least put the feelers out from what just
Try.
people
Yeah.
we know, the Meskwaki community,
Yeah.
and seeing from there. And then I think if there is, if there is no taker on that as an artist, then figuring out what the next, then I
Right.
think that's, a fork in the road with Lucas Farms and perhaps envisioning something else.
I'm acquainted with a local Indigenous activist. My son and her son are very close friends. I can make sure that if it can get in front of her, so the people she knows in her network that can make, yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
We have an artist at Summer of the Arts who is at the Arts Festival frequently, who is a local Indigenous artist as well. And so I feel like she would be a good person to say, hey, we have this, can you spread the word? Or, Jenny, you have
Sure.
folks too.
Sure. I think that would be really exciting. I still do wonder, are there legal issues that need to be ironed out before we proceed with this?
I will work with legal on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Assuming there's not a problem to terminate the contract based on the situation, do you guys want to make a motion to take that remaining funds and put it towards a Lucas Farm RFP?
All right, okay. So I'm making a motion to, if able to terminate the contract, then terminate the contract with Dawson Davenport, taking the remaining funds for the Blackhawk Mini project and transferring those over to the Lucas Farms project
They would go out to
with,
RFP.
with the idea of having an RFP specifically directed at an Indigenous artist to work on the Lucas Farms art project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's exciting.
And then I guess the next question is, I guess depending on legal's, firm answer, checking back in with Judy on potential development.
Well, I mean, we kind of determined that even if Ben says, yeah, I really want to try it, we're
Oh,
still going
that's
to
right.
put out an RFP,
Yes,
right? Like,
correct. Thank you.
Yes.
And before moving forward with anything, we would want to have a contract that they would sign and have full understanding
Yes.
of what the timelines were.
Yes.
Or else they wouldn't be paid,
Yes.
basically.
Perfect.
there's a high five here today.
This is exciting. Actually, I didn't expect this to go down like that, but I love it. I love it. Judy really did a nice job selling the Indigenous history of Keokuk.
Yeah.
Love
I
it.
didn't know that only 4 streets are, I would have guessed more, but. Awesome. Anything else on that before moving on to staff updates? You're good? Okay.
South District Bench Project update. The mentor and the emerging artist have been, they still haven't gotten the information they need, I guess, to figure out what changes would be needed in a design behind the sidewalk or a design in front of the sidewalk. So I think DOT is looking at that right now, right? They have been looking into the costs for both, which, sorry, not both, but the cost for the hand, and it's becoming prohibitively expensive. So far, without any contingencies built in, the hand sculpture is up to $16,000. No contingencies on that yet. So
a
I
bunch of
had
free labor.
suggested maybe they take some measurements and look at the domino design and just compare costs. This is part of the mentor's work is to help manage the work and, can't necessarily go forward with a project that is outside of our budget.
What was,
one of those hand chairs.
what was the original budget, Wendy, for that?
10 grand or something?
Was it 10?
A total of 12,000.
Oh.
2 of that was to go to the mentor
Oh.
and 10 to the emerging artist, and that includes the materials.
Materials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So there
Maybe
are
one
other
domino.
bench designs they could pursue that wouldn't be as expensive, and, yeah, exactly.
I love the hand.
I know, I did too.
There are
But
other-
it was so
nice.
obvious.
But then I
there's
was
no
kind of
way.
like, is it the hand chair or is it like a smaller? I'm thinking of, is it, oh shoot. It's the sort of forearm in Detroit for one of the hometown boxers. I can't, Joe Louis maybe? Is it that sculpture? But anyway, I pictured a little more horizontal than the whole vertical thing. I feel like there are ways to work this hand, perhaps, with less expense, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
So they're actively, they engaged with you? Great. I know they at least asked me for some contacts for structural engineers, so I assume they reached out to them.
Yeah,
too.
they did. They said they made that contact and
Great.
had a meeting. They didn't show me any stamp drawings or anything.
Right.
So that's the update on that. Any-
Is there I mean, just with a little bit of, at a loss for words, sorry, is there a date associated with this? Like, are they gonna,
They're
how
they're
long can
already-
they push this out?
They're already past dates, and it'll be tough. It would be almost impossible at this point to get something installed yet this fall, which was the goal.
Got it.
I don't know if that's worth, well, if pushing it back to the spring is, worth a huge amount of concern, given the type of project it is, with an artist and a mentor and a design over budget. I'm not sure we need to be quite as strict as we might be with, a concrete installer doing sidewalks downtown or something. They get fined every day. They're late.
Liquidated damages.
But that is something perhaps we could look at, you could look at the next meeting. We could review what that deadline, or what those schedules are for that, and try to get back on schedule,
That's good.
amend the contract. Yeah, sorry to be sniffling.
Wendy, when is your last day? I know it's not on the agenda.
It's a week from tomorrow.
Congrats.
Oh, thanks. Let's see. And you're all invited to the greenhouse from 4 to 6 on Friday, too.
Okay.
This Friday? Or next Friday?
A week from tomorrow.
Next Friday.
Yeah,
Your last
the
day.
11th.
That makes more sense.
Work that night, that concert that night. I was like, no.
One other thing I was going to update you all on was is the sculpture showcase. All of this year's sculptures have been installed now. Last one went in yesterday, and they look fantastic. Every last one of them does. The signs for them have been made. The signs include a QR code, so people are going to be able to zip over to our website, which will have the explanation from the artist, and we'll also have contact information for the artist. So if somebody's interested in seeing their website or writing an email, they should be able to do that way. Those signs will probably go up, I'm thinking, next week. We have to get our website updated first, and artists are still approving the text for that, so,
Is it just something that's flat on the base?
yeah.
Great.
They're screwed, they're like 9 by 12-inch brushed aluminum, printed by Alpha Graphics in North Liberty. Found a local supplier at 2/3 the cost of what we had paid last year, so yay. Anyway, those will be screwed in. One of the artists said that in another town, they do something similar, but they just use some kind of a liquid nails to put those on. I don't know how easy it is to get them off, but
Just
yeah.
like a new sticker over for the next one.
That could be too. Anyway, that's it. So take a walk and take a look at all of those. They're really, really fun this year.
Exciting.
Have we had any applicants for the other bus stop projects?
Yeah, they had 4 applicants that I know of. They have not awarded who will get what bus stops on that. That was the Climate Outreach and Engagement Office.
Okay.
Their program with for the Climate Fest coming up will temporarily decorate 3 bus stops locally. So we've got some neat ideas on that. Yeah. Other than that, that's all I had. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
There's one other item we could cover. First of all, since this is Wendy's last meeting, maybe you want to give her a round of applause. So you'll be stuck with me starting in September, and unfortunately, this is bad timing, and I hate to do it to you, but in October, I will have to miss that meeting date due to my honeymoon. So I wanted to just pose the question to the group, and you don't have to make the decision today. We can make that next meeting if you want, but just plant a seed of potentially some options. I think we have capable staff members who could lead the discussion if needed, and our city clerk's office could assist with the administrative piece. We could delay it till October 19th, would be when the next Thursday I could do. That's getting pretty close to the November meeting. Or, and again, if you want to wait till next meeting, we can decide at that time if we feel like things can keep moving forward with staff and if we want to just cancel the meeting. Perhaps you others see different options, but those are kind of the three.
I guess, I mean, from my perspective, it seems smart to just see what would be on the agenda at the end of the next meeting and
Yeah.
cancel it if it doesn't seem like there's something urgent.
Yeah, I think making that decision at that time is fine. I just wanted to give you the heads up, and I apologize for that. I'm sorry.
Darn honeymoons anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy, for everything you've done.
It's been my pleasure. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. It's been a good mix, too, between the art, undergrad, the business, graduate degree, and then finally getting to put them both together at the very end of my career.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
So you guys will, between you, pass the torches on stuff like this RFP for
Oh, yeah.
Lucas Farms and whatnot?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
That's Ron's duty.
Do it.
Need a second.
Get a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.